Happy Monday and welcome back to the Weekly Noodle, the official podcast of Spaghetti Records. I am still in the studio after last week's episode here with Bill, Dave, Ben, and Andrew, the founders of Spaghetti Records, and we've been talking about their vision and plans for the super cool record label and the music that they've got coming out. Guys, are you still doing okay?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I'm swell. Ha! Take that, Andrew.
Peachy King.
I am marvelous. Thank you for asking.
Wondrous.
Thank you.
Obviously, a lot of the projects that you guys have talked about involve the four of you. Do you have any other projects that you're working on that involve maybe some other super creative folks that we all don't know about yet and probably should?
Well, we met this group of guys named Phil. Four of them, four Phils, and they're kind of. We met them in a comic book store. They were huge comic book nerds. Yeah, and we were talking to them, and we just kind of we started working with them, and they had this idea for comic book-esque music. So we've been working with them on that. But I can't remember all their last names off the top of my head. There's Phil, Filament,
Phil Moore.
One of them was a doctor. He was Dr. Phil. I said, "What are you doing in the comic book store?" But I mean, hey, everybody teach their own. So they're really cool guys, though. They came out with some good stuff. So yeah, the Phils.
Yeah, Phils are great.
There's a kind of oft incarcerated fellow that goes by the name Cell Block Earl, a kind of outlaw country guy that if his music wasn't so good, I think we would not want him around. But it's a sacrifice you make. You know. Take inventory of the equipment after he leaves the studio, but he's fun.
What is the threshold for being oft incarcerated? Like, what are we talking about here?
Like, I honestly couldn't tell you right now whether he's on the inside or outside. It's
I think more oft than not he's inside. Yeah. There is a kind of a post rock project with a really talented guy named Jason Mines. It's called Sway. That's an exciting newer project we've added onto the roster.
To turn the tables a little bit here for the listeners, Melissa is something of a multi-instrumentalist as well and producer. And as far as Spaghetti Records releases, who knows? But at some point on this podcast, we I believe we'll get to hear some of your music as well, Melissa.
God, I hope not. I'm so sorry, everybody. But maybe it could happen. So you mentioned production by way of talking about some of the stuff that I do. So we've talked a little bit about the artists that you guys are cultivating. I personally would love to hear some of this children's music project because I think it's a grossly underrated and sophisticated style of music writing and production. So what are we going to hear?
Yeah, we're going to take a listen to a song called Lucas, My Brother. It's about my son. And it was co-written by my other kids. I have a lot of kids, about 20. So that's what it feels like some days. Busy man. Yeah. At one point. Yes. Okay. So that's what we're about to hear.
All right. Well, with that, let's take a quick listen to Lucas, My Brother, a song about an actual child and several adult-sized infants.
Best baby that we've ever seen. The best baby that we've ever show him all the places we like to go. 'Cause he's Lucas, he's my brother, baby Lucas, he's my brother. Best baby that we've ever seen. Best baby that we've ever seen. Lucas, he's my brother.
All right, that was Lucas, My Brother by the Three Friends Project. Very, very cool. But who else is involved here? So are you guys doing all of your own production and recording? Are you working with other producers? Like, how are you guys working? I have a sense that there's a strong DIY aesthetic here with you guys, and that's a big component of what you do. But let's talk about it. What are you guys doing?
I would say production-wise is similar to the writing and just making of the music itself, is in that it's largely in-house, but not entirely. So what I mean by that is we have a studio in Detroit and a now defunct studio in Chicago where a lot of the music was recorded but won't be moving forward. But mixes are typically done outside of the nucleus of Spaghetti Records, outside of the inner circle. Of course, again, for listeners, Melissa owns and runs Sad Monkey Sound in the San Francisco Bay Area. And of course, Melissa, you're doing some mixing and some production for us. And then there's a studio actually out of Bangkok called Black Swan Audio. That's done a lot of our mixing as well. So final mixes are typically done at Black Swan Audio or Sad Monkey Sound. And the tracking is done pretty much exclusively in Detroit at this point.
I think it's a very modern way of making records. I think, all of us grew up at a time and remember, the stories, right? If you go into the big studio in LA or maybe in Chicago, there are a few there in New York. And then ideally you're working with some really famous person and you hand them a bunch of money and you walk out of there a few weeks later with a finished record and it sounds amazing. And, I think you guys are really embracing the new reality where even in the major label world, everybody's doing a lot more themselves. Everybody's recording in smaller studios and working remotely. And I think this, kind of global, not to be cheesy, because I think I always hate when people, it's a global approach. But it is a global approach. You guys are working, with yourselves, primarily in the Midwest. You're, working with folks here like me on the West Coast and then somebody in Bangkok, that's incredible. And what an amazing time to be making music, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it kind of touches a little bit on what we mentioned earlier about trying to make a modern record label. Well, 20 years ago, probably really even 10 years ago, it would have been nowhere near as easy to do this sort of thing where there's this long distance element involved. Just technology has made that possible, which is pretty awesome. Yes. I remember the first time I ever recorded was in the 90s and it was with tape. So definitely we're at this point old enough to remember a time when it wouldn't have been feasible to send tracks back and forth and, work the way that we do.
I think it's just, like we remember that and we miss it and try to emulate it with some of the modern technology or the real deal. But it's really been nice. I mean, the Spaghetti Records started pre-pandemic, and then during the pandemic, it helped us that we had strengthened those skills of remote collaboration and writing. And it just, I think it also, bless you. I think it also, supports, like if any of us get a spark of an idea, it just supports being able to lay it down and send it out and someone throws something on. Like, we have one of the cool newer projects is a children's music group. I think that probably started mostly, David sent some, I know Dave and Andrew and we've all kind of contributed, but we're kind of big players in that. And Dave, I know you had a few great children's music ideas that you had thrown our way. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that, or that wouldn't be possible without this way of working.
Yeah, I mean, the whole process has been, I think we've just been working with what's in front of us. Like, like Ben mentioned, this, a lot of the recording that's been done in the past year obviously has been done amid a global pandemic, where we weren't necessarily meeting. At one point, Andrew was still living in Illinois. It was like all these things where we were doing things from our own homes, sending them out. It was text messages, it was emails. It was loading things up to a drive, listening, giving feedback, Evernote, just every way of communicating possible just to get ideas out there and share them. And, it sounds crazy, but when you're with a group of people who share a vision without even talking about it, that's the weird thing. Talking about, let's just talk about the Dwellers, since the four of us are on here, that came together so effortlessly, and it sounds like it would be hard to do something like that totally remotely, but honestly, it's like nothing I've ever been involved in. Like I said, just through text messages, through phone calls, through FaceTime, through email, through just, I'm loading something to the drive, I'm going to let you know about it right now. It's just been wild, but I don't think it really crossed our minds how we were doing it. We just wanted to do it. So.
Well said.
Kind of clicked.
Yeah, well said, man.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you guys approached the sort of practical realities of that kind of remote collaboration? I'd love to hear, you guys talk for just a few minutes about maybe strategies that you've come up with. I know that, like you said, we've been in a pandemic for, the last year and change. And I suspect that a lot of people have been, taking that opportunity to chase, the creative pursuits that maybe they haven't been home enough to, to work on for a while. So what have you guys learned? What do you think the secret to your remote collaborative success has been?
Well, it helps that I'm an anal retentive asshole. So the OCD really...
One of us needs to be.
Just one, please.
There have been some challenges just in, like logistically with how people work. Like me, it would have always been just endless email chains, whereas Ben was more like, let's use Evernote, or let's use some, platform that everybody's seeing the same thing, instead of a lot of back and forth email. And just when you get into the particulars of the specifics of how things were shared and how communication was handled, there was an element of just learning to accommodate for other people's preferences, compromise, find what works best, what's most efficient, and adapt and adjust. So I think there's been some level of that. But as far as the creative process, kind of like Dave said, it really just clicked. I think we just found a group of people where things clicked, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a chemistry there, and I think that I'll just say on behalf of myself, I've been very grateful to be part of any project within the Spaghetti Records. It feels very natural, and the chemistry is there. It exists, and these guys have thrown things in my lap. I don't mean it like that, but they've given me things like, hey, check this out. And it's just very exciting. So I'm just very grateful to be part of it and here talking about it right now. So
definitely.
Yeah. And just writing, in terms of writing songs, coming up with, you don't have, a lot of the time somebody will have a complete structure, or most of a structure or something like that. But then being able to just say, hey, Dave, like, here's this thing, what do you think? Or Ben, here's this, what do you think? And having them be able to come up on their own without any guidance, just like saying, hey, listen to this, and if you like it, play along to it, and let me know what you think. And then doing that, and getting the result, getting back what they do is really awesome. And yes, I am incredibly grateful. So it's just like it's a very cool collaborative effort.
that's Andrew, what you're saying kind of that's where we settled on the name, is just that style of creativity and open-mindedness in writing, where you just like cooked spaghetti, you throw it at the wall, and if it sticks, then you run with it, and if it falls down, then you still probably record it and just have like a D side release for super fans to be punished with. But
yeah, that was the backstory behind the name Spaghetti Records. That's kind of the way we record. I have songs I've done where I asked Andrew to contribute some guitar, and he literally sent back like 16 guitar tracks, 16 different ideas. And then I kind of chopped those up and pulled parts out and did some production, reversed some things, whatever, just played with it and got what I want out of it. So there's that definite, there's never any hesitation to try an idea or 10 different ideas. And there's never any, if somebody does something that you're not feeling, I think we have that kind of mutual respect and work together in a way that, if that was a noodle that didn't stick, well, I'm not that into that. Let's try something different, So there's this kind of broad net where we'll just try, if Ben lays something down and you want something added, I might say, hey, I'm hearing something like this, or I have this idea, and it might not even be a part that I record and send back. I might say, hey, why don't you try something like this on the guitar? So there's this definite, throw it all at the wall and see what sticks kind of philosophy behind it.
I think it's really great. I know that having played in bands with Bill before and other folks, I know one of the things that I value most and what I love about being in bands with people like yourselves, who are oftentimes multi-instrumentalists. And, I think that gives people a good sense of what's possible and where things could go and how to bend around other players. And I think what's really impressive to me about what you guys are doing is that there's so much of that interaction that we take for granted when we're playing together in one room. It happens very quick and it can feel very natural. And sometimes you don't realize you're doing it. And so I think I just want to say, hats off to you guys from what I can tell and from what you're saying, figuring out a way to do all that same stuff just with a little bit of latency in between, right? You're giving each other the ability to go through that same process, but just doing it, in a different way. And I think that's super awesome. So yeah, congratulations to managing to figure out how to do that, because I think it's no small achievement.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, because we have since gotten together now in person, and we've been able to play together, and I realized that I just really hate these guys and I can't stand being in the room with them. No, it's the complete opposite. So it just took it to another level. And honestly, after our first time getting together and actually playing in person, some of the songs that we had done, depending on, I'm not just talking about the Dwellers, I'm talking about Spaghetti Records in general, just getting together, seeing these guys, talking in person. And after a year of not doing that and all of these ideas coming out remotely, virtually, it was very emotional. So it just took it to another level.
Dave cried.
I cried pretty much the entire time I was driving home. So yes, I haven't. You laugh.
All right, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Weekly Noodle, the official podcast of Spaghetti Records. Join us next week with your regular hosts when we talk about more behind-the-scenes noodle action. Keep it saucy, Noodleheads. He said, reading is for stupid people. Why would I spend 12 hours reading a book when I can watch the movie in 2? Oh. And so, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
The Weekly Noodle is the official podcast of Spaghetti Records. All audio materials herein are hereby property of Spaghetti Records and relevant subsidiary parties. Trademark, copyright, secret recipe. Unauthorized duplication of authorized noodles is uncouth, rude, and generally frowned upon. The Weekly Noodle is made possible through listeners like you.